Good morning. We have the chimes of the bell tower back again now.
Yay.
About 3 or 4 weeks into the
feel
semester.
like I'm at home now.
Yeah, it's nice to have that indication that it's 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, the 15th of February, and you're watching Talking Point Live. I'm Eric Young.
And Jennifer Kohler.
And we're glad to be with you once again, that you continue to join in our conversation here as we go through and chat about current events and media and critique and all kinds of things. A couple things boiling over this morning,
right,
in terms of Michael Flynn and
right,
how that's being interpreted. But there are a couple things you wanted to get into,
right,
though,
I did. I kind of wanted to start with the question, is the world in more danger than ever? And the reason that particular question is because tomorrow at noon here in the Gardner Center with our Institute of Politics and Public Affairs, that's the topic for Pizza and Politics at noon.
I thought you were going to say tomorrow at noon it's all coming to an end.
Yes, the world will disintegrate. Right. Is the world in more danger than ever?
Is the world in more danger
if somebody
than
asked
ever
you that,
before?
what would you say?
Well, it's a complicated question because I think the United States might be in more danger than ever before. I'm not sure about the world in its entirety. Or we could talk environmentally and maybe get into some issues there in terms of global warming, what's happening. Certainly a resounding yes, the world isn't in more danger than it ever has been before. What's the question really speaking to, do you think?
Well, the topic is global security, the overarching topic. But I would say if someone asked me that question, I would have a resounding absolutely yes.
Absolutely,
I have
yes.
no question
Yeah,
in my
I
mind.
think I would too.
Partly because I was in one of the books I was going over the other day. The author made the point that because of technology becoming increasingly smaller, nanotechnology, and becoming more accessible, that it won't be that many years before you can actually make a nuclear device yourself. At that point in time, when people are able to construct a nuclear device that can blow up on their own, pretty much, then the world will not have, I mean, there'll be no way of preventing
right,
catastrophe.
Right. But we have the ability to create weapons of mass destruction anyway.
We do.
Beyond maybe what technology is going to afford us in the near future. And we've seen the results of that here not too long ago. Is it is it a valid concern, do you think, then? Is it, so you're reading this book that goes through and talks about it in the future, this is what's going to happen. And it's pretty easy to create paranoia and fear.
Well, look at Ted Koppel's book, Lights Out, which talks about our aging and complicated electrical grid in our country. I mean, that book goes into a lot of depth, not only about the vulnerability of our system, our electrical grid, but on the responses to disaster. Again, we've never been so wired and so vulnerable to hacking, in the past.
The world's been going to hell in a handbasket here for a long time.
Yes.
If we turn to Naomi Klein, her book Shock Doctrine, it talks about how politics really goes through and capitalizes on this whole fear concept of, oh, it's going to get worse, or we're in the worst situation we've ever been in. Certainly that's been Donald Trump's rallying cry to America.
So is there truth to that?
How terrible the country is. And no, there's not truth to that. We don't have illegal aliens pouring over the border. While we do have, in terms of joblessness happening, it's not as bad as it's been painted there for everybody to go through and worry about.
So a lot of times there's an element to truth in the worry, and then it gets hijacked, if you will,
it's easy to
and manipulated.
Paranoia. It's easy to hijack being afraid for your safety or for your security. So I find it interesting for the talk tomorrow, the seminar tomorrow
on global security.
On global security. Are we in more danger? Are we in more danger here in St. George, here at Dixie State University, as a result of things that are going on? Are we in more danger of a shooter coming on campus? than we were before? Or are we hearing more about these things via technology, making us more hyper aware that the possibility of these things could happen, however?
Well, I don't actually feel comfortable responding to that question regarding our campus. You and I should talk about that.
Right.
Before
well, I don't know
we
that
talk
I posed
about
a question in terms of campus security that way.
Right.
What I'm saying is,
right.
there's more coverage of the vulnerability of college campuses, and obviously
Yes.
any K through 12 types of environments that are out there. Long before Columbine, in fact, PBS is airing their documentary on the tower of the University of Texas in Austin. The shooting incidences that happened there. It's something I'd like to, I haven't watched it yet. I need to go through and take a look at it. It's nothing new, I guess, is what I'm saying. But it's always presented as new information to make us more hyper aware, more paranoid, more fearful about what's happening. And when we're in that state of mind, when we are afraid, we are more vulnerable to being manipulated by the institutions that make decisions for us.
So it's tricky because you want to be aware and you want to be concerned where it's appropriate to be concerned, and you don't want to be paranoid.
Right.
So it's a challenge, I think, for the average person to weigh and balance the messages.
Sure.
And to not overreact, but not to underreact. See, I tend to be an underreactor.
Well, I don't know. You just overreacted on that supposed question about security here at Dixie State University.
Well,
you're like, I don't know if I want to go there.
We can talk about that, you and I, when we're not on the camera, okay, a little bit.
No, I'm fascinated now.
No,
You got me.
I'm just sorry, but we'll talk
You're
about
not
it,
gonna talk about it
later when we're not on
Okay.
the camera, okay? Okay, but I will say that. So yeah, I'm an underreactor by nature. I'm usually the last person in the world to get in the room to get upset. So
to get upset.
Upset and.
But to be fearful, to go, oh my goodness, maybe.
Pretty
they're
much,
right,
I'm the last person to be fearful in the room.
The impression that you've given me over the course of doing the show for what 3 years now is that you. Forgive me, but you have a tendency to take on face value just about anything anybody says. You give them the benefit of the doubt. And even though that you might not respond strongly or emotionally to that, you still have an acceptance perhaps of whatever that idea might be.
I think you misconstrue my lack of condemnation as acceptance.
Okay.
And
good,
I will
good.
say that because I
would
know
agree.
you, I am more skeptical than I used to be.
Okay.
So I used to be quite accepting.
I wish I
Now
could say
I'm
because of you I'm more open-minded. But I'm not. I'm working towards it here, perhaps on some level.
Yeah,
but,
so it is true. That's interesting to see how we're perceived by other people, especially
Right.
people that know us well.
Right.
Yes. So, okay, now.
Because you don't have, I'm going to go with this condemnation thing
All right.
because I think that's brilliant on your
Okay.
part here,
Okay.
Jen, for you to go through and say that. So you're not so quick to condemn, but that doesn't mean that you are actually receiving or accepting what those. So how do you manage your neutrality emotionally?
Well, partly because emotionally I'm like super stable. I'm like almost like I'm an underreactor.
You're an underreactor.
So I'm always processing it, I'm thinking about it. And
But this
sometimes I get on
conference-
my high horse and I gallop around, I get hysterical and my hair goes on fire. Okay, but generally speaking, I don't. Right?
The seminar tomorrow, though, has your attention.
Well, I thought it was a provocative message, and because I'm reading this book, The Filter Bubble, by Eli Pariser, which is, again, I'm always constantly astounded by how much of our privacy we've given away, and how vulnerable it makes us as individual people, no matter where we live. So I just, was brought up short again by the fact that when we carry these smartphones around, we just give up. We give up between those and our computers all of our privacy.
Well, here we are. You've got your computer and your smartphone
and my
out, and I've got
smartphone,
mine.
and they're all. Look at
Here,
that.
and
We
here
are
we
a
are.
little pair
We're
here.
just giving it up.
Yes, we are.
You're complete.
We're paying actually to give away our privacy.
Give away our privacy.
Yeah.
Because the convenience trumps. Gosh, I hate that verb.
It's 54, remember?
It's
or 45, remember?
45.
Yeah.
But I'm using it as a verb here. So, but I still don't
But you
like the
still
verb.
said it.
What was I saying? the convenience is more important to us. It overrides the idea that, well, I might be giving up something of myself by using the technology. And there's certain ways, maybe we got to do a show on this sometime where we just talk about ways to go through and maybe kind of bomb-proof or privacy-proof, that's a misnomer, at least increase your chances of keeping your whereabouts private in terms of going through your default settings on your phone and changing those. Maybe we can put together a little segment on that.
We were talking earlier, right? Your smartphone, like you said, well, it knows if you fall down. It knows if you're climbing. It knows if you're walking.
Sure.
It knows if you're running. It knows if you're in a car. I mean, it
knows your cadence if you're walking, not just that you're walking.
And in a way, if you're a person that's struggling with balance issues, for example, it can be helpful.
Oh yes, absolutely.
For your well-being, right? But we've given that information away.
Yes, but wouldn't it be nice to have, though? So for example, and I'm kind of hijacking maybe the direction you want to go with this. Years ago, I was developing an algorithm that would go through and take all this data that would be generated by the different devices within your phone. You have a GPS in there, you have an accelerometer in there, a little gyroscope that you're talking about, that gives this, and wherever it might be on our person, its position and relativity in time and space, right? So if so the algorithm that I wrote would go through and analyze that data and then see how that reacts with my physiology as well and what it is that I might be doing. So I might be driving my car, it's in my car, and then I get rear-ended by somebody. And the accelerometer goes through and registers that G-force data that is beyond the scope of anything of a stop or a sudden acceleration. It knows that that G-force, it knows that I've been rear-ended. And so it could automatically place a call to my in case of emergency contact, or it could go through and dial 911 or whatever, if it goes through and figures out perhaps that I have been compromised, that the G-force, so the blunt force that I had experienced in a rear-ending accident, or I T-bone somebody, whatever the case might be, or I fall down a flight of stairs with a number of G-force incidents. It takes that data. Wouldn't you like to have that?
Yeah.
You have your own personal valet?
Would I like to have it?
Your own squire?
To the extent that it also knows when I'm speeding. So now my insurance company knows what kind of premiums to charge me.
Jen, I've been with you in a car.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm just saying that.
And you need to have all the data possible.
You know what I'm saying about that, though. So, yes, I mean, it's a protection, and in a way, though, it's a complete invasion. Because, like, for example, if you started investigating hiking in third world countries, who's to say that your insurance coverage for your, won't go up because now you're going to be at risk for traveling out of the country, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, you need to get supplemental insurance. Just so you know, if you hike in a third world country, your health care insurance isn't going to cover you. You need to get supplemental insurance. No, I get what you're saying.
So it gets
your
sold
automotive
off, right?
insurance is going to go through and say, well, I see that you're... But see, if you're driving
General Motors... that Jen drives too slowly. She's a threat on the freeway.
Yeah.
Right.
In the left lane.
Yes. Yes.
Do you really drive slowly in the left lane?
No.
Okay, because...
But I'm just saying hypothetically, again, we've given away all of this information, and it can come back to really wreak havoc in our lives.
General Motors came out with their OnStar service a number of years ago. I had a GM vehicle that would email me at the end of every month and let me know all of its performance paradigms and if it had ever exceeded the speed limit. Like, so if my son took it out, it would tattle on him and let him know. People buying Corvettes would go through and disable it because it would report their quarter-mile times at the red light as they were speeding away to their insurance companies. Are we that bad? Is it to that point?
I think
we could scream chicken little here all we want.
I think that's where it's going. I do think that's where it's going. There's so much money to be made in selling our personal data to marketing that, yes.
But that's where this whole privacy issue started. Mm-hmm. As we reel in horror and fear about government agencies, the federal alphabet soup's ability to go through and analyze our data, that it didn't. Google showed them the way.
Maybe we expect it from the commercial interests, but we don't expect it from the government.
Well, from the commercial interests, so there's a new app now, and with a number of different apps that are out there in terms of retail shopping. So if I happen to be shopping at a mass merchandising retailer like Target, for example, it can track not only that I'm at the store, but where I'm in the store within just a few feet of a product. And if I happen to stand in front of that product for a while, like I'm looking at flat screen TVs, then it knows, or it can calculate or discern that perhaps I might be interested in buying a television set. But I walk away without maybe picking up the item, which also has a device in it, okay, that can let this other device know, or the store's own Bluetooth pickup, that I now have that device in my basket or on a cart or whatever, and I'm going to go ahead and check out with that. I can leave the store without it, and as I step out of the store, it will push notify to me a coupon, especially if I happen to be making my way over to a competing mass merchandising store.
I can see you're going to manipulate the system and get the best deal you can.
Sure, I'm going to stand in front of the TV for 15 minutes, and I'm going to
then leave, go stand by the competing product, go run out the door to
why not?
leave and go to Walmart and Kmart.
But isn't that super convenient?
It is convenient, but do you, as long as you know you're doing it and you consent to doing it and you realize what you're giving up, then go for it.
Okay. Well, another part of this technology is it happens to know what shades of lipstick you have within your vanity.
How does it know that?
Depending on your purchase history and what's going on with that. So it can go through as well in terms of your selfies and figure out your flesh tones. Are you a fall or spring or winter or summer type of person? And if it happens to be a cloudy day, it will go through and push notify you and say, maybe a different shade of lipstick might be a little bit better for you. And chances are you might not have that lipstick, so let me show you where you can buy it while you're getting ready there in the morning. Yeah.
Well, okay, and fortunately for me, the way I happen to live my life at this point in time, it's pretty boring. There's nothing super exciting or recriminating in my behaviors.
Well, you need to live a little.
Well, however, so I'm not particularly worried about my internet searches coming back to cause me a problem, or who I talk to on my phone being a problem. Okay, but
unless you've talked to a Russian consulate here with them.
Oh yeah, now why do you bring that up?
Well, I'm just trying to get back to Michael Flynn here on some level. But
well, okay, so we just
finish your thought though. I interrupted you.
I'm just saying. So I might say to myself, well, I don't have anything to hide, so I don't have anything to worry about.
Who does?
I completely disagree. A lot of people do, and I completely disagree with that mentality, because you
don't have anything to hide.
That I don't need to worry.
Okay.
Yes, because the whole idea of giving away privacy, it's just wrong.
But isn't that a little paranoid? I mean, if you don't have anything to hide, then who cares?
Because it can be misconstrued, or it can be used against me by somebody who wants to misconstrue it or mischaracterize behavior. Or what if it becomes unpopular to be an indexer for family search, and all of a sudden everybody in the indexing community is targeted for one reason or another? So that includes me, for example. Or it becomes unpopular.
Well, this is good to know, because I'm now associating with an indexer.
Exactly. And it can track how many times you and I have been proximate to one another physically.
Of indexing.
Yes.
And publicly here on camera as we're going through.
Well, you're making fun of it, but I'm just saying it bears scrutiny and being aware.
And
you can't just blindly adopt.
I'm just playing devil's advocate
I know
here.
You are.
I agree with
it's
you.
It's your favorite hobby.
So
let's talk about Michael Flynn, because I know that's on your mind this morning.
It's fascinating to go through and watch. This is a big story.
Okay.
Anybody who says it's not is dealing with an alternate reality, I think. As we're getting more and more information in terms of Flynn's resignation. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. In terms of 45's firing of Flynn. Hey, there's an alliteration, 45's firing of Flynn.
Oh, I like that.
I like that.
I like that.
I should be writing news here, apparently. Fox leads with the story that Trump feels that the intelligence community is completely un-American for leaking this information about Flynn's association with the Russian government.
We need to define un-American.
Right.
And define American, and what it means to be American. Okay.
We do, and I think we'll give this as many definitions as we have viewers. So that would be like 4 definitions at this point. Anyway, CNN, NPR, everybody else leads with what's the story about Flynn, not that the intelligence community, and we don't know if it was the intelligence community who leaked this to begin with, okay, that led to Flynn's resignation. We do know that there was a concerted effort to go through and look at, there's a certain term that they use for this and it escapes me, but to look at the number of phone calls and the duration, the metadata of those phone calls that existed between Flynn and his Russian counterparts, I can't call them counterparts, Russian Secret Service basically. And this was during the campaign at the same time that the hacking was going on in terms of what was happening in the political process in the United States. And it had to do with the sanctions that Barack Obama had placed on 2 Russian properties, basically. They weren't necessarily embassy properties, they were leisure or vacation properties owned by the government of Russia. And it was pinpointed that one of these properties, the second one's under investigation or suspicion, but one of these was the the source of where this alleged hacking was taking place. So with Obama's sanctioning and getting folks out of there, a 72-hour notice to get them back to Russia, there was conversation going on during that time and prior to that time, not just between Michael Flynn, who now, well, as of
what was his role in the
yesterday,
campaign? I'm not remembering.
I'd have to look that up.
Okay.
I don't recall right off the top.
But he
of my
was
head.
active in the campaign.
He was active in the, well, most everybody on his cabinet, on 45's cabinet, have been active in his campaign on some level. And and why wouldn't you go through and choose those people that
of course
have proven themselves on some
yes.
level to be close
There's
to
nothing inherently nefarious about that.
Inherently nefarious. Wow, there isn't anything inherently nefarious about that. However, it's proven out to be incredibly nefarious as we see these folks perform or not perform within their capacities, such as the National Security Advisor, one of the most critical appointments that a presidential cabinet can have here. And now we're finding out that there is an alleged or a potential collusion happening between our National Security Advisor and Russia's Secret Service, who have been implied in hacking the United States political system in terms of electing a politician.
Let's just say that they did that and that it affected the election. But whatever it was they revealed, as in a WikiLeaks reveal or whoever reveals things, that whatever they revealed was true, that actually happened. Those emails were sent, those comments were made by people of the DNC. So they revealed the truth. And it had
no,
an effect.
wait. You just went truth. Did you get that? Truth.
Okay.
Okay.
So
they revealed the truth.
Okay.
Does this mean that it doesn't exist anymore?
I probably shouldn't. I probably put instead of this, I should have done a capital T, the truth.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Time out.
And the question is, does it matter who releases the information if it's accurate and true?
It all depends on how Kelly and Conway spins it.
No, I want to know in your opinion. I want to know in your opinion. If it's the truth, do you care who the messenger is? In this case, it might have been the Russians teamed up with the Trump team to make the Democrats look bad. Does that matter who reveals it or not?
If Democracy Now! Comes out with it, which is a left-leaning, a left-wing, almost fringe, if they came out and said, I would say, I don't know. Okay, and if the Blaze came out with something like that and said that, I would say, I don't know. I would have to go through and look at a number of sources.
Okay, but ultimately you found out it was the truth.
Right.
And it was
accurate. You
accurate.
were asking me despite where I was hearing the truth from.
Right. Well, I'm just mad. I'm just trying to get to the heart. Does it matter who the messenger is if what the messenger is saying is accurate and true?
Okay, that's a good question.
Should we care?
We have to.
Okay.
Else, how do we know if it's true?
Well, okay, let's just say it's been established it's true. Okay, with a capital T, no quotation marks.
Right.
Okay,
Does it matter who says it?
Does it matter who says it?
Well, apparently not, because somehow I've been able to establish with a capital T that it's true through some other channel. So if anybody else goes through and reports that same truth, it doesn't matter. The message doesn't matter.
Okay, so in this case, it might have been the Russians hacking with the help of the Trump team or not.
Right.
But it was the truth, whatever it was they revealed.
But it won't matter, is what I'm saying. Even if that is the gospel truth about what happened, as I'll go back to 45's declaration that he can go out onto Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, it won't matter.
Okay, now I'm really confused by what you're saying, Mr. Communication Professor.
Regardless of the truth of the situation, okay, if it's discovered that this level of, can I call it tyranny?
I think you're starting to get cynical here.
Well, this level of undercutting the democratic process in the United States, if that's discovered that the Trump campaign was indeed implicit in steering the opinion of voters in the United States of America along with Russia,
or anybody else,
it won't mean anything.
You're saying
because even this morning we have a Republican from Kentucky saying, well, Republicans really shouldn't be investigating Republicans. In response to the whole Michael Flynn of constituents saying, we need somebody to look into this and investigate this guy and see what's going on. And the Republicans are like, well, no, actually, we need to go through and look and see where the intelligence leak of this information is and not really investigate on a congressional or a senatorial level what's happening with Michael Flynn. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jason Chaffetz came under the same scrutiny here last week did you see that? Did you happen to watch
You know, I heard about it, but I haven't watched it.
Wow.
Right, I heard it was pretty dramatic.
Wow. Do your job. Just do your job. Republicans say, well, we really don't need to do this because, we just need to go through and we just need to get on with, reforming the Affordable Care Act and doing everything else. But if Hillary Clinton was under the same scrutiny, you could better believe that Capitol Hill would be on fire with burning torches to go through and burn her at the stake, regardless of an investigation. So where's the equity here? You can't tell me, as they come back time and time again, this is not about politics, we're not going to go through and politicize what's going on. And then when they come out and say, well, Republicans don't need to be investigating Republicans, I can't say what I want to say.
Yes, so you're frustrated that there's a double standard and hypocrisy and
I'll
partisanship.
Be frustrated for the rest of my life.
Partisanship,
because that's just the way
it is.
It is.
Okay, it is because as American citizens, we allow it to be that way.
And we're so willing to roll over on that, just like we're willing to roll over on this and what this is taking away from us. We're fine. The Boston Marathon bombing happened. The little town, I can't remember the name of the town there where the finish line was and where the bombing actually happened. But as federal troops and state troops and local municipalities were looking for Tsarnaev, if I recall his name correctly, there was a huge infraction in terms of the constitutional or the amended expectation of privacy.
My niece had to stay indoors. They were under house arrest.
No search warrants, nothing. We're coming into your house or looking for this guy. And nobody said, no, you're not. I have my rights. You can't come in
without a warrant.
No, people stood there in their slippers and pajamas and opened the doors and said, come on in and take a look because we want to find this guy, right? So the fear of that situation completely overcame the concept of the rights that were involved in terms of what were constitutionally guaranteed. So we're willing to roll over on that. We're willing to roll over on privacy issues here. Now it seems like we're willing to roll over on an administration who thumbs their nose at these same amendments in order to get those bad guys, in order to get those terrorists who are coming over the border, where apparently there are signs in Arabic instructing the radicalized Islamic terrorists, this is according to Flynn back in August, where to actually go to start their process of invading the United States of America.
Well, I know you're not dismissive of the security threats to the United States. I mean, you're not saying there is no threat, but you're saying that we're being manipulated by the fear of the threats.
What have been the threats before? Who have perpetuated these threats?
Well, I don't know, because the media doesn't cover it.
Right. Well, outside of Bowling Green, and now apparently the other one's in Atlanta, outside of those two there, every source of domestic terrorism that's happened in the United States has been done by a United States citizen. Not by some ISIS member who was smuggled under a fence in some farm field in Texas. It hasn't happened. Heaven forbid it happens now. Okay, because it's really going to hit the fan. But we're not at the crisis level that 45 keeps telling us we're at. We're not there. And he's just doing that to come back full circle here, to go through and raise the level of paranoia, to get those pitchforks and those torches lit as we go through and round up all these illegal folks who don't have the proper documentation to be here. Are we really that?
I was going to say, we've run out of time.
You need to set up a flare
and
or something.
you're like super emotional, so you're saying we're vulnerable because of our emotions, and look at you. Your hair is going to
I'm mad.
Be on fire in a minute.
Okay.
We're going to come back, hopefully next Wednesday.
Sorry about that.
And Eric's going to still be passionate, but sane at the same time, clear thinking and passionate combined.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks for being with us at Talking Point Live, coming to the Holland, from the Holland Building.